friends, it's Gwen. Welcome back to my channel. Today is the most exciting video of the year. My best and worst books, my top 10 worst, my top 10 best books of the year. I am so excited about this video. It's one that I think about all year long. I'm sorry I have my chai over there because I'm going to be talking a lot, but I wanted to say yesterday I posted my end of the year wrap up extravaganza on my podcast that was recorded with Jordan, my friend from Sorry Booked Solid here on YouTube. And yes, we do talk about our top 5 worst and top 5 best, but we also share like a lot of reading stats and we award bookish superlatives. So even if you watch this video, I highly recommend you hop over and watch that episode. It's over an hour long, so definitely get cozy, but it's such a great episode. It was so much fun talking to her. We went really in depth with just like our whole reading year. So if you're interested in all of that, definitely hop over. I will have the episode linked in the description box for you, but today I'm here to share just my top 10 favorites and my top 10 least favorites, if you will. Also did want to let you know one stat. I read, as of today, 183 books. I mean, that's just wild. I read 183 books. Like, are you kidding me? I'm gonna go ahead and start with my least favorites, and sometimes I do rank them from like, I didn't like this book to I hated this book, but I don't really have a good ranking for my worst books, so we're just going to go ahead through them very quickly. I will say before we get started that the main reason I didn't like these was either the writing, it was too character heavy and not enough plot, or a combination of those two things. Let's go ahead and jump into my worst books of 2021. I'm so sad to put it on this list, but, and I think a lot of you probably will be shocked because I know a lot of you liked this, White Smoke by Tiffany D. Jackson. I did not like this book. It had too much in it. Like I said in my most disappointing, it had a mix of trying to tackle all of these really important social justice issues, but also balance that with like this creepy haunted house ghost story. And the two were not seamlessly woven together. And I will say it forever, anytime someone gives you something for free, I mean, is it really for free? All right, moving on from that, A Lesson in Vengeance by Victoria Lee. I talked about this in October. I was reading it for my witchy vlog. I did not think it had enough witchy vibes. It was very character focused. It was very slow paced and nothing happened. Next up is The Drowning Kind by Jennifer McMahon. I picked this up because even non-horror readers were saying this was a great horror book. And I think I discovered after reading my second Jennifer McMahon book that I just don't like her writing. It's not for me. I know you guys love it. I think that's great. It's just not for me. I really went off about this in my podcast episode that I posted yesterday, so definitely check that out. But there's just so many little things that don't make sense to me in this book, and I just could not ignore those things to enjoy the story. Next up is The Sanatorium by Sarah Pierce. This was a chunky boy that I got from the library, borrowed it. Thank goodness I didn't buy this book. It is an isolated setting. They go to this, it used to be like this hospital of sorts, but now it's like this fancy hotel, and there's people dying and things are happening and they're snowed in, and it's just kind of a mess. It's one of those, you know, closed roomed, locked mysteries. Very, you know, it could only be someone that's there. And it's just very slow paced. The ending came out of left field, and I don't know. I don't know what I was supposed to have read or what I was supposed to enjoy, but that one did not work for me. Girl He Used to Know by Tracy Garvis Graves made it onto this list just because of spoiler things that happened. I did talk about it. I did do a dedicated reading vlog to this because I read it during Romance-a-thon. I have a love-hate relationship with Tracy Garvis Graves. Absolutely loved On the Island and the novella that went with that. I believe it's called Uncharted. Really did not like this. So, you know, it's like a hit or miss type thing, and that's fine. It just didn't work for me. One of my most anticipated books of the year really let me down, Makeup Breakup by Lily Menon. This is a rom-com about two app developers that fall in love. It's an enemies to lovers because they have rival app companies. And for me, going into it as a romance, it was not enough romance. It was much more focused on the apps, developing their apps, making money for their apps, going to this convention to pitch their apps, to get this like grant to help their apps. And it was just apps, 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 apps. And I didn't care about that. I mean, I probably would have if I would have went into it, or maybe I probably wouldn't have picked it up if I knew it was like heavily focused on the apps and then like the romance happened kind of in the background. I probably wouldn't have picked it up. But if I would have picked it up, at least I would have known that. And it was just pitched to me as a romance. So I thought it was going to be a romance. And I mean, I guess at the end there is a happily ever after. Much more of a contemporary story about these two rival app developers that happen to fall in love. The reason why I don't have any of these books is I've gotten rid of all of these books, you guys. All right, next up is another most anticipated release, The Marriage Pass by Brianna Cole. And this one hurts because I was raving about this book before it even released. The cover was gorgeous. I was so excited about the premise. And unfortunately, number one, it was much shorter than I thought it was going to be, which is fine. I read a lot of short books this year, but it needed some major edits. And I'm not talking about like one or two. I'm talking every single page had something off. It was mainly like the dialogue and how they talked, and it just didn't flow like English. And because that was so distracting, I wasn't even able to appreciate the story. I would love to see this one edited and republished because I would like to read the story, but it was just so distracting to read that I couldn't appreciate what was happening in the story. All right, next up is Beasts of Extraordinary Circumstance by Ruth Emmy Lang. This was an old, like 2017 maybe, book of the month release, and I picked this up. It has a little bit of magical realism, I think. Like, if you asked me to pitch this book to you, I literally could not tell you what I read. It took me forever to read it. It's kind of like nature and this person. It's very character heavy, and yeah, let's just say that was a no for me. I also wanted to mention Her Last Word by Mary Burton, which I picked up from the library, returned it, and then I bought a copy myself and read it. So that's how dedicated I was to reading this book. And it let me down. The whole story is kind of centered around this woman trying to find her cousin or her sister. Yeah, her cousin. And then at the very end, it's like you don't even get, I mean, you do get that wrapped up, but it's like so quickly, and it like quickly flips to something else in like the last 20 pages, and you're like, what the heck is going on? And it had this like weird out of place sex scene. Yeah. All right. And the last one is actually holding the slot for 3 Christina Lauren books. I am so happy that these were not the first Christina Lauren books that I ever read, even though they are like her standalone, you know, first few books, because I probably would not have the massive Christina Lauren collection that I do and love for Christina Lauren. Dating You, Hating You, My Favorite Half Nightstand, and Roomies all got 2 stars from me. And if you're interested in more in-depth thoughts, I have a whole reading vlog reading those 3 books and sharing my disappointment. But enough about the worst. Let's move into my favorite books of 2021. I am so excited about these, you guys. A mid-video drink of my chai tea latte. So good, you guys. All All right, now let's get into my favorite books of 2021. I am so excited about this list. I did rank my favorites. So we're gonna start at number 10, which is like an all-time favorite, to number 1, which is my number 1 best favorite book of the year. Hopefully you get how we're gonna do this. All right, coming in 10th place is Shipped by Angie Hockman. I loved this book so much. I love enemies to lovers. I love rom-coms. This felt very much like Honeymooners by Christina Lauren. They go to the Galapagos, and I have always wanted to go to the Galapagos. Also, I'm huge into conservation and saving the earth, and I'm an eco warrior and all of that. And it had that nod to those things. Also just them going, it being an enemies to lovers. It's more of like a light enemies to lovers. So you have these two rival people. They work for the same company. They're proposing, they're drafting a proposal on boosting bookings in the Galapagos. So they take this cruise, this trip to the Galapagos, and they're going around and they're going on these little excursions, and they're also just, you know, competing against each other for this job. And I absolutely loved it. And I'm just so happy that I read it. I absolutely love the cover, and it will be one of my all-time favorite books for a very long time, I am sure. Coming in at number 9 is Second First Impressions by Sally Thorne. I am so happy that I held out hope and I gave Sally Thorne another chance. Sally Thorne is the author of The Hating Game, which I really, really enjoyed. Also the author of 99% Mine, which when I read that book, I was sure that The Hating Game was ghostwritten, because 99% Mine was nothing like The Hating Game. It was so bad, from the characters to the dialogue to the plot, just everything. But everybody was raving about this like last year, and I was like, I need to pick it up. So I had put it on my wish list. I was keeping an eye out at like the book exchange and stuff like that, and someone in my book club reached out and said, hey, I know you've been looking for this book. Do you want me to send you my copy? And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, please. So she sent me her copy. I read it, and I adore this book with my whole heart. I will never stop thinking about this book. It's about this woman named Ruthie who works at this retirement villa. She's worked there for like 6 years. She mans the desk. She, you know, helps the residents. She's kind of like the woman in charge, if you will. Without being the woman in charge. And the new property developer that buys the villa and the land and stuff, his son moves in next door to Ruthie on the property. And it's their romance, and it's so freaking wholesome, you guys. Also, there's tortoises. There are these 2 ladies that live at this retirement villa. So Teddy Prescott, they use the property developer's son. Their most eccentric residents have just placed an ad seeking a personal assistant to torment. So these 2 ladies torment Teddy, but he just goes with it, and it's just, it's so heartwarming. It's so cute. I know it sounds strange, but I highly recommend you pick it up if you enjoy rom-coms and if you just want a wholesome, heartwarming story. Definitely pick this one up. 8th place goes to Float Plan by Trish Dollar. I had to have this one on this list. It meant so much to me because it came as a recommendation from a friend that watches a lot of my videos. They became my friend because they watch a lot of my videos. We were in the same book club together for a while. Thank you so much for recommending this book to me, Penny. It really wasn't on my radar. I had never read anything by Trish Dollar before. So it wasn't on my radar, but this cover is super cute, and the story inside is, I think, so important, but also it offers like that escapism. It's like a traveling, you know, type book. This woman's fiance kills himself, and she's dealing with the fallout and the grief of that, and she decides to take their planned sailing journey adventure anyway by herself, but she realizes she's not the best sailor, so she needs to hire someone, and she hires Keen, and he's a professional sailor. He's also an amputee. He only has 1 leg, And it's just so beautiful, the combination of the grief, dealing with the grief, but also this like budding relationship and adventure. It's not just about the romance. It's more about coming to terms with what happened and feeling like she can move on with her life in a way. It's just a beautiful mix of like grief and happiness kind of at the same time. And it's fairly short, so I highly recommend you pick it up if those trigger warnings do not bother you. All right, guys, coming in at number 7, I'm back to support Survive the Night by Riley Sager. I don't know what it is about this book that so many people hate. Like I said in every video that I talk about it, I think it's that they don't like the fact that Charlie gets into a car with a stranger thinking that he's a serial killer. That's not what happened. So I'm not sure where people are getting their information from. Does she get into a car with a stranger? Yes. But how she goes about it is a way that tons of young adults are doing it every single day. And if you get to the end, I think it all kind of made it worth it for me. It did have some parts that were a little, I don't know, as you're reading it, she kind of has these like dream-like, you know, parts. And I know that got on a lot of people's nerves, so I understand. But I absolutely loved this. I was picking up on things as I was reading it that I didn't realize I was picking up on. And then when I got to the end, I was like, oh, that's so cool. I just had the best time reading this. I did do a release night reading vlog for this, so if you are interested in all of my thoughts and feels as I'm reading it, definitely check out that video. But I really enjoyed this. I will stand behind this book as one of my favorites. I mean, it's not my favorite Riley Sager book, but it's definitely up there. Plus, I just love the 90s vibes. Also, completely predictable as well. For Your Own Good by Samantha Downing. I think this is my favorite Samantha Downing book to date. I have read her other 2 books. This one was just like a little something different. It had a character, I think all of her characters, all of the main characters in her stories are assholes. But Teddy takes the cake as the most obnoxious jerk on the planet because he thinks he knows what's best for everyone. He knows what's best for his students. He knows what's best for his colleagues and anybody else in his life. And if they don't do what they should, he's going to make them do it. And what I loved about the story is not only did it have like such an unlikable character doing unlikable things that was super entertaining to read about, but the way it was written and the way there were surprises throughout the story, different POVs that I wasn't expecting, and just different little things like, oh my gosh, I can't believe the author went there, you know. Those type of moments just really made this stick out in my mind. I will continue to support Samantha Downing. I will continue to pick up her books, and I cannot wait for her new release in 2022, which does not have a cover, does not have a title, but you know I'm going to get my hands on it. Coming in 5th place is People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. Guys, I adored this one. It is a friends to lovers romance with a happily ever after that's totally worth it. I love this one in particular because I think it would be good for readers that don't normally like friends to lovers, because this one really does show Poppy and Alex's friendship over a decade and then how they got to where they are now, and then this summer vacation that they're taking to hopefully fix their friendship and maybe, you know, dip their toes into something more. And it's just such a good ride. It also has those like beachy vacay vibes. So again, if you want to go on a vacation, maybe pick this one up. Coming in 4th place is A Season for Second Chances by Jenny Bayliss. I'm so happy I read this before a lot of other people did, because I really treasured that reading experience. It was much more than a romance. It's about a woman that has been cheated on, again and again, finally gets the nerve up to leave the relationship, start everything new. She takes this random job opportunity as a winter guardian in a seaside town, and she's just restarting her life again. In the process, yes, there's a romance, but it's definitely not focused on the romance. It's much more of her like moving on in this town and her new friends, and they start a book club and all of this. Again, I have a dedicated reading vlog to this. I actually think I read this as some holiday romances. It was the 5-star of that video, so definitely check it out if you want more of my thoughts in the moment as I was reading this. Oh my goodness, you guys. It's top 3 time. This is where I struggled because I loved all 3 of these books so much. You already know what they are because I've already talked to you about them in several other videos. But what order do they fall in? You're about to find out. But before we go into my top 3, I want to remind you to listen to yesterday's podcast episode. If you're wondering what my average rating was, what genres I read, what my favorite book cover was, what book I thought was the most improved, the most creative, the most unique, the most popular, all of that, you definitely have to listen to yesterday's episode. I go so much more in depth of these books. Also, you get to hear Jordan's stats and her superlatives and her, you know, top 5 worst reads and favorite reads, and her taste and my taste are vastly different from one another. So she talks about books that I haven't even read. It was very, very hard, you guys. Okay, coming in 3rd place, I'm giving it to The Push by Ashley Aldrain. Guys, you know how much I enjoyed this book. I read it in February. I absolutely loved it. I loved the motherhood. I loved the situation with her daughter. The ending was super great. It took it from like a 3.5 to 4-star to a 5-star read. That ending did. I like that it tackles like generational trauma and just like postpartum depression and just how women are viewed during those times, like during and after pregnancy, and just like all of that. Highly recommend you pick this up. I would say look up trigger warnings before going into it if you haven't read it and you're interested, because it does definitely have some things that I think you should be aware of before going in. Definitely do some research before going into this one, but this is number 3, you guys. Now these top 2, actually these top 3, I was just like rearranging them. I could not find the order, but especially these next 2, once I was like, okay, The Push is lower because it wasn't really a 5-star until the very, very end. These were like 5 stars from page number 1. Coming in 2nd place is, oh my gosh, Razor Blade Tears, you guys, by S.A. Cosby. Oh my gosh, this book was so good. I loved Ike and Buddy Lee so much. They made this book. Ike and Buddy Lee, one's black, one's white, and they have, or had, they each had a son, and their sons were married. And at the beginning of the novel, they're at the funeral to their sons because they were killed, and now these 2 ex-cons are on a path for revenge. They're gonna get the people that killed their sons by any means necessary. And I mean by any means necessary. So it is very bloody and gory and action-packed, and I love those type of thrillers. If you love those type of thrillers, like movies or books, like this is for you. But also just Ike and Buddy Lee are freaking iconic, you guys. Like, they're my favorite couple of the year. I mean, seriously. So, if you haven't read this, then I highly recommend you pick it up. It didn't sound good when I read it. When it was one of the Book of the Month picks, I wasn't going to pick it. I was going to skip that month. Oh my gosh. It's my 2nd favorite book that I read the entire year. So definitely pick it up if you haven't read it. If it sounds good at all, think about it, consider it, look up trigger warnings, but I highly recommend this. And my top book of the year, my favorite book, my #1 book of the entire year. I'm shocked, to be completely honest, because I read this book in January. It was January when I read this book, you guys. Since We Fell by Dennis Lehane. I need to reread this book because it's so hard to explain what I loved about it. If you like conspiracies, pick up this book. It's over 400 pages. I didn't know too much going in. I just knew that it was a book of the month copy when I picked it up from the book exchange. And then I was trying to get through some of my book of the months. And I remember way back in like 2017, randomly hearing people say that this was good. That's why I picked it up. But I didn't really know anything about it going in. It starts with this woman. She is a globetrotting journalist, but she's trying to find out who her biological father is. Her mother never told her who her father was, and now her mother has passed away. So she has taken it upon herself to hire a private investigator to find out who her father is, if he's still alive, where is he, what's going on, all the things. And she has this random chance encounter with this person. Also, she's married. She has a happy life. You know, everything's great. I mean, everything's perfect in her life. But she has this chance encounter. And then she goes on assignment, and she ends up, because of the assignment and things that happen on the assignment, she ends up having this like on-air breakdown, and she comes home and things get really rocky between her and her husband, and she becomes this like virtual shut-in. And then she bumps into the person that she bumped into previously, and things just take off from there. The way that the book starts is super interesting, like looking for your father, you're hiring a private investigator. But then you go on this assignment with her, and then she's a virtual shut-in, and then she has this weird encounter with this person, not once but twice. And then just like weird things start happening, but like in the best way possible. And by the end, it's just like heart pumping, edge of your seat, what is happening, oh my goodness type thing. Now, I won't say it is as action-packed as this one, but if you like those like conspiracy type things where the wheels in your head are just turning and turning, this is the book for you. So this is my favorite book of the year. I'm going to link my Goodreads review to this book down in the description box as well, because if you read that review that I wrote on January 18th, I predicted this as one of my favorite books of the year, and that was in January, you guys. So those are the worst and the best books that I read in 2021. I know this was all predictable to you guys because when I love a book, I talk about it a bunch, but I still wanted to share with you guys. I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to check out yesterday's podcast episode. It has a bunch of different type of content in it, and plus you get to hear Jordan's all about her reading year. So it was a lot of fun. This video was a lot of fun. Thank you guys for spending another year with me. It has been so much fun, so rewarding. I appreciate every single comment, and I will see you guys again in another video very soon. Bye guys.